So, with a little bit of an understanding of what EMDR is, let's now talk a little bit about how EMDR will look when you first come in for therapy. So, the beginning stages of EMDR are really about setting the stage for the deep EMDR processing work. So, for the first session or two, we really just take some time to talk about what exactly it is that you've gone through and maybe what needs to be the focus of therapy. One of the big fears that a lot of people have coming into EMDR is that we're going to have to open up all of the negative things I've ever gone through in my life. And I don't want to relive this stuff. Heck, I don't even want to remember it anymore, right? That's why I'm coming to see you. And so, what I'll say to that fear is that your mind encodes memories in what's called a memory network. In other words, a linkage of memories that are similar because of the experience that you went through. The power with the memory network is that when you process one experience, it usually helps process or eliminate some of the intensity of other experiences around it. So, in the example of being in a car crash that's somewhat traumatic, maybe parts of that memory network include a memory where I was cut off in traffic and it was like a near miss, a time where I was driving and I hit a patch of ice and got into the ditch, maybe even a time where I'd had a fender bender, but everyone was okay for the most part. That would be an example of a memory network. Now, if in EMDR I process that main bigger car accident like experience, those other experiences will likely lose some of their intensity as well and either won't need to be addressed at all in therapy or will only need a brief touch or a little bit of attention to be able to get you to a better place. And so, really, it's about identifying those memories that hold the most weight for you, the most emotional baggage, and then figuring out where do we start. Sometimes we start from a chronological order, right? Like the most early experience you can remember to more of the present day, or vice versa. Other times we focus on the memory that is the most distressing and then work our way down to the least distressing event, knowing that as we go, chances are we won't even have to work through all of the way down because, again, working through those intense ones will lower the intensity of the others. Or, again, the other way, working from a low intensity level up to those more difficult ones. And that is all dependent on what you want your therapy experience to be like and what you feel like you can tolerate in therapy. These beginning stages also include a lot of prep work to make sure that you feel ready and confident to do the work. I'm never going to push you faster than you can go because to do that would be to push you into a place where you might be, re-traumatized or get a secondary trauma where just even working through it can be really difficult, right? And so we take it slow. Part of that is finding good resources that you can tap into to be able to tolerate the distress level for your memories, whether that's, deep breathing or visual work or just remembering strong people in your life that you want to emulate to help you in this processing work. Then from there, we usually dive right into the EMDR processing work. When you come in for an EMDR processing session, what we do is we sit down and I will ask you some questions about the experience to help bring it up. For this process to work, you have to have one foot in the past and one foot in the present. What that means is, you can't be all the way in the past because then you're going to be just reliving the experience, not actually processing it. And you can't be with both feet in the present because then you're not actually touching anything to actually work on it, right? Then we start with the processing work. And the processing work really looks like this. I will ask you to just notice some of those things that I asked you about, such as maybe the negative thoughts you get stuck on, those difficult emotions that come up for you in this moment, and the general distress level that you're feeling. And then I'll have you just notice those things, and we add in the bilateral stimulation. So here in therapy, I like to use these guys, which are called TheraTappers. And basically, what they do is you hold on with both hands to these things, and I turn them on, and they will buzz so that we're providing that tactile stimulation where one buzzes and the next in each hand, right? While that is happening, you are simultaneously just noticing what comes up for you as related to this experience. It's something that's called free association. In other words, you're not really trying to just go through the experience like from point A to point B. You're really just noticing what comes up for you, knowing that your brain and your body knows what it needs to heal and knows how to heal. We just need to provide it a space to do that. I then check in with you about every 30 seconds or so, And I'll ask you, what was the last thing that came up for you? And you'll tell me, oh, well, it was like this. Like, I remembered that moment right before that car hit, or I remember talking to the paramedic, whatever that experience might be for you. And then I say, okay, notice that. And we just go right back into it. And we repeat that over and over again throughout the majority of the session, again, with me checking in with you very regularly to make sure that you're in a good spot and processing through things. Then, when it feels like we're starting to bring up more positive things than negative things, and it's feeling like the memory maybe isn't as distressing as it once was before, and or we just near the end of our session time together, I'll ask you how distressing the memory feels to you now compared to when we first brought it up in session. The scale that I use for that is a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being little to no distress and 10 being the most you can imagine. Hopefully, you should be in a place where that distress level is much lower than what it was before, and to a place where that memory or experience feels more manageable to you. Again, for most of us, it's not getting that down to exactly a 0, but getting down to a place that, again, feels much more manageable for you. I always make sure to check in with you to make sure you feel good and comfortable leaving therapy. And if you ever need any additional support, I like to make myself available so that if you need a phone call or if you need an email or just a check in or whatever, that you have that. Because one of the things about EMDR is that after an EMDR session, so this is post after you've left, over the next 72 hours or 3 days or so, your body is still going to be processing through some of this stuff, right? Because we opened it up a little bit and your body is still trying to make sense of it, usually in the background, more of like a subconscious process. Sometimes that can mean you might just feel a little bit more tired or slightly irritable or a little bit more emotional. For most of us, totally manageable, but having that added support can be really helpful if it ever feels like I just opened up all this stuff and I don't know what to do with it. And so that's a little bit of what EMDR would look like if you came in to see me.
You and your therapist would spend time identifying what negative core belief is impacting your life. A really common one is I'm not enough. And then you would identify a memory that's disturbing to you that kind of has solidified that negative core belief within you. And from there, you identify where you're holding it in your body, like maybe your chest is really tight, or you have a headache when you think about it. And then you identify the emotions that correspond with it. And from there, after you've done kind of that history taking, the therapist will also practice relaxation techniques with you, grounding exercises, things that can help you stay in the present. Because while EMDR is, activating both sides of your brain, we want to make sure that you are grounded in the here and now. So we practice a calm, safe place exercise, and we practice container exercises so that you can contain kind of all the things that we're bringing up. So after those things are pretty solidified and you've practiced them quite a bit, then we'll do processing sessions. And how I typically do those is the client will come in and I'll check in with them about how they've done since the last session, things that might have come up, maybe dreams they've had, things that were triggers that they noticed. And we'll talk about that for a while. And then I will have them kind of rate their disturbance level on a scale, the disturbance level of this disturbing memory that we're targeting. And then we'll do typically a relaxation exercise to kind of get you in the mindset of doing the processing. And during the processing, we use these tappers that allow for the bilateral stimulation to happen. So you're just holding these and they go pretty quickly during the processing. You don't even have to think about it. The therapist turns it on and off for you. And what's really interesting about EMDR is the therapist follows a script. So in that way, it can seem pretty repetitive. And I think some people think there's like correct answers to the questions or things they need to be experiencing or feeling. And really, it's your brain doing the work. So if you just respond to the therapist's questions, how you feel, then your brain will do the work for you. So typically I'll do about a half hour of processing or whatever really the client seems able to handle. And then we'll go into a relaxation exercise again to kind of contain everything that was brought up or triggered so that you're not leaving the office, with all this stuff just hanging out because that's not fun. And then the therapist will say, notice anything that comes to mind this week, triggers you may have, dreams, and you just can write that down in a journal and bring it next time.